I've loved sport. A certain natural ability with sports is a good starter, but I was quite small at school. I was never that good at cricket or rugby. I didn't make the first 11 or the first 15. So that's when I started tennis. I was an average player, but I've never won a title. So I've really not had success until my 70s. And I was 74 when I was selected for a New Zealand team to play in Turkey, and I didn't win a game. But I've since played in 6 other world tournaments and I've won many games. I love travelling because I've got 2 daughters in Europe, so that's a very good reason to go most years. It's nice to use their home as a base and go away and play a tournament and see a little bit of Europe in the process. I'm competitive at heart. I think many people are, so yes, I've always wanted to do well, and I started off last year hoping I could make the top 10. The best I'd ever done was get to 11, but I made it to 4 in the end. It's made me meet some wonderful people. At my age, it's very rare to find a game that you don't enjoy. The people are wonderful, and they're like you. They're full of go, full of life. They like to travel. We had a World Championships in Canterbury a few years ago. There was one in Perth I went to some years ago. So you meet wonderful people. But I think also the encouragement to keep going, to keep being fit and have a useful activity. I think there are 2 hinges to having a good and happy retirement. Firstly, the financial one. It's very important. So getting that right is important, but the other side, probably even more important for your enjoyment of life, is to stay fit and healthy. And as I say, there's a bit of luck in that. I've had operations, I've had prostate cancer, I've had heart problems, but fortunately we live in an age where they can be treated. I love life. I've had a great life. And I have. I've had a wonderful wife, great kids. I get great joy from my children and grandchildren and now a great-grandchild. So there's a lot to be happy about. Get out there and do something. And there's so many things we can do. There's voluntary work. I decided after my wife had died and my family had left home that I should do something for society. So I volunteered for 2 years and went to the Solomon Islands. That's been a great interest to me. If you can't do a job or find all the days to spend on the golf course or tennis court, do some volunteering work. It's very rewarding. And society depends on volunteers. They do such a wonderful job. Being reasonably fit and strong in older age, very important for older people because you have to do up your shoes still, and that can be tough. I think I started when I was about 6, so I've been playing 79 years. I drive home and I see the malls full of cars, and I think, why aren't they out there playing sport?
What I like about this story is that New Zealander Ashley Wilson was last year ranked at number 4 in the world for his age group, 85 plus years of age. So you can see he's really fit.
And there's a positive attitude about him that's also healthy. He understands what it is that makes a balanced life.
He's a winner in many ways, and especially for this program, which is about health. We're talking about staying healthy. Being healthy is something we all want for our retirement because it means we'll all have a better one.
I think the #1 factor that a balanced retirement is predicated on is having good health.
People's goal is just to remain as healthy and as mobile and as flexible as they can for as long as they can to enjoy other things that they like to do, like travel. So, you know, keeping them well, in a sense, is going to give them access to a whole range of other opportunities.
Unless we've had a health event, which has meant that we have then sort of really started actively managing our health, for a lot of people, they assume that their good health up to now is going to be what they will experience many years into the future. So I think the health side is the #1 focus I see for a balanced retirement.
I think
health is incredibly important, but to actually also think that keeping healthy, rather than sort of moving towards sickness, how are you going to keep healthy in retirement is incredibly important.
We just see so many people having unfulfilled goals in retirement, you know, as a result of ill health. So
they need to take good care of their health. They need to look after their physical health. They need to exercise, have proper diet. They need to develop a sense of rest in their life. But in retirement, they can become more centred, more restful, more at peace with themselves and with their family.
I see too many people who are too busy to do those things until it's too late. So it's just really, really important that people spend the time to manage their health, because their health ultimately is the sort of foundation on which we can do everything else.
And keeping well doesn't start when you retire. You know, keeping well is about keeping well before you retire. You know, having a plan in your 40s to keep yourself well in your 60s and 70s.
Look, the science on this is really quite fascinating, and essentially it seems that there are 5 things necessary for a life to truly, what they call flourish. That's the terminology we use. And that is, you need positive emotion. So you need pleasure, you need joy, those sorts of good feelings. You need a sense of engagement. That is things that you're into, that you enjoy for the sheer joy of doing them. You need a sense of accomplishment and mastery in your life. Then you need positive relationships. And this is where it starts. These is where it gets to the deeper levels of flourishing, if you like, but relationships being really foundational. And then the last thing the science indicates is people need a sense of meaning in their life. And that meaning comes from having a sense of belonging to and contributing to something bigger than yourself. Now, the elements of a healthy lifestyle also include those things, because we know that a flourishing life really does empower good health as well. But in addition to that, we also need things like positive nutrition, obviously, and that's a diet that's predominantly plant-based. We know that people need to move, because motion creates emotion. We know that things like rest and sleep and work-life balance, these are all really core components of a healthy lifestyle.
I've had it pointed out to me a number of times that being reasonably fit and strong in older age is about 25% genetic, and the other 75% is luck and good management. I've looked after myself. My wife helped me look after me, but she sadly died 25 years ago, so since then I've had to look after myself, and that's been exercise, but also a good eating regime, not to be overweight. I have a big vegetable garden, so fresh vegetables. Here in New Zealand, we can get mandarins and oranges from trees in our backyard. So, yes, a good eating program is very important.
Time and time again, we hear experts tell us that exercise and good eating are the keys to health. These really are the fundamentals.
What we eat is important, and if we want expert advice on what makes a good diet, nutritionists and dietitians are a great place to start.
Without good nutrition, your body can't grow or stay alive, actually. So from eating healthy food, you get a lot of nutrients, phytochemicals, fibre, so many different plant components that really help our bodies to work like they should. Trying to stay away from processed foods, you want to eat real food. Food that contains nutrients and phytochemicals, looking at plant food especially, as many vegetables as you can manage, nuts and seeds for good fats, and then also legumes for protein. And of course, from vegetables, you're going to get such an array of minerals and vitamins, fibre, and many other plant phytochemicals that really help to make our body work like it should be doing. If someone is eating meat in their diet, just a small bit, is a little bit like a condiment really. You know, if you looked at a matchbox size, that's really how I like to see people eating their meat and using it, not sort of half the plate of meat with a few vegetables. What you want is lots of vegetables with a little bit of meat to add that extra little bit of protein if that's what you're wanting.
People are often surprised at the suggestion of so little meat in their diet, but the recommended diet is the Mediterranean diet, which is really plant-based eating. I came across the World Cancer Research Fund report a few years back, and they suggest the best diet is vegetables, fruits, legumes, and grains. And if you want to avoid cancer, they suggest no processed meat, which kind of caught my attention. But it seems that that's the best diet to have.
What we need to have a lot of is whole foods, especially plant foods. Looking at your leafy green vegetables where there are so many different vitamins and minerals. They are really high in calcium, they're high in magnesium, they're high in so many vitamins that are really important for the functioning of our body and for energy, for even things like mood and how calm we can feel. By eating a lot of leafy green vegetables, it can really help that. Also thinking about food as a rainbow, look at trying to include so many different colours in what you're eating. Using foods like oranges and legumes that are brown, they're going to have many nutrients in them as well. Or peas that are bright green, beans. Any foods that have got a multitude of colours are going to give us lots of phytochemicals and increase our nutrients that our body can get from that food we're eating.
So, if we want to focus on good nutrition, eating real food is important. That means to stay away from processed food as much as possible.
And for best health, we need to focus on plant food.
And finally, eating as many different colours of food as possible, like a rainbow.
And then there's the eat slowly suggestion, so we enjoy our food and pick up the cues that tell us we've had enough.
Portions are really difficult because everybody is different. It's so dependent on lots of factors. It's dependent on activity levels, it's dependent on age, it's dependent on sex, it's dependent on height. There are so many things it's dependent on, and so it is a little bit more difficult, but it's important when you look at your plate, and 3/4 of it should be with lots of vegetables, and then a small amount of protein and a little bit of fat, and that will give you what you need. But often what we do is not eat slowly enough when we're eating, and so we sort of miss the I'm full cues very easily. And so thinking about what we're doing when we're eating, instead of just sort of reading a book or watching TV, it's really important to eat in the moment and to actually be, that is all you're doing. Put your fork and knife down between mouthfuls, to take time over food, to enjoy it. Your digestion will work a lot more efficiently if you have actually spent time in your eating and you've chewed properly. So for me, I think to be nourished, we need to eat a wide variety of foods. They need to mostly be plant foods and as unprocessed as possible. So sometimes looking for a treat from within that category of foods will be even more beneficial. So, having a little wee piece of chocolate, for instance, and you can get some phytonutrients from chocolate, dark chocolate. Having one little cube every now and again can be fine. Nuts and seeds in like a trail pack will be a lot more beneficial than maybe going and buying a big Milky Bar of chocolate and eating that all on your own. So it's being careful to only have foods like treat foods every now and again, certainly not every meal, and filling up first on the nutritious, healthy foods, and maybe have a little treat every now and again afterwards when you're finished.
I guess most people, as they come up towards retirement, are not thinking of retirement or their health, and that's the problem. But they need to start preparing. They need to check particularly for things like hypertension and diabetes with their doctor, get their blood pressure taken. Finding a doctor is quite a challenging issue. And I think it's important to realise that different personalities click more easily with other personalities. Hopefully, a person has already established a good rapport and a friendship with someone before they start needing lots of health care. Don't be afraid to look around. Someone who's prepared to talk to you and is obviously a bit interested in you as a person, not just your diseases. Go to their doctor and say, I've come for a check. That'll usually mean a simple blood check, some blood tests, and a history, because history is very important, and a family history. If you've got a family history of certain conditions, particularly the nasty cancer type ones, then further tests may be available.
I had this troubling experience a few years back when I had 2 days of headaches, which it was rather fascinating because I had no peripheral vision. It was interesting trying to walk anywhere because I almost kept bumping into people because I couldn't see them coming. And it lasted for 2 days and it went away and I didn't think much more about it. But Maggie and I went to the doctor a couple of weeks later, and while we were there, Margie said, "Tell her about your headache." And I just dismissed it as a migraine, but I began to tell her the story, and she said, "Okay, you're having an MRI, a brain scan." And what they found was that I had a stroke, a mini stroke. Let me say, in hindsight, it was one of the best things that happened because, one, it didn't do damage, that was a good thing. But secondly, it discovered a problem that I have. And I have what's called atrial fibrillation, where the heart will miss a beat sometimes. What we discovered is my family is riddled with atrial fibrillation, but nobody talked about it. People need to talk about what's in the family so you can be aware. For me, if I'd known, there may have been something I could have done to have stopped it. So check your family history.
I'll just bring up the topic of screening. It's very much applicable to this age. This is coming to a diagnosis of a condition before there's any symptoms. For instance, for large bowel cancer, there are screening tests which picks up small amount of blood in the stool before you really have any symptoms. And also with men, specifically too, the blood test for prostate cancer, of course. Again, I'd like to emphasize the screening tests of when you don't have symptoms. So ideally, a person that age, 50 plus, should go to the doctor and say, "I feel okay, but is there any advice or tests that I should do at my age?"
We need to be proactive with our health. As we retire, we should make sure that we have regular annual visits to the doctor, because it is so important to actually pick up health issues early than later. An example is prostate cancer and breast cancer. They are the two things that are now becoming pretty common, and yet the prognosis is very good if it was picked up early. But if you left it later, unfortunately, there's not much they can do to stop the progress of that disease.
Well, I really would like to emphasise that screening does not prevent anything. So prevention is really, really important. So starting and consolidating healthy lifestyles and eating, exercise, those sorts of things are really, really important. Social contact, this is something often forgotten, but that's important too.
Just can't go out onto the court and not be reasonably fit. In old age, you get fit by walking. I used to run a lot, I used to jog a lot, but I gave up running. It's too tough at my age, so I walk a lot now. I have steps to climb near my house, so when I am about to go overseas for a big tennis program, I get fit by walking up and down steps. I can still volley from the net. Some older players find being at the net is too tough. The ball comes onto them too quickly and they can be injured. So they stand back, and that's not good. Command of the net's all important in tennis. So yes, having good flexibility. Lots of books out now on how to keep flexible. Very important for older people. Being flexible helps a lot.
The rule with physical activity is that essentially the more the better. To a point. Obviously, it's not a great idea to be running a marathon every day, but the more that we're able to do, essentially throughout the course of the day, the better off we will be, the better the health outcomes. So my advice to people is just start where you're able, and whatever you can do, fantastic. There's actually really fascinating studies where researchers have taken people and taped them into slumped over postures. And we know that when people do that, it doesn't take long and they actually report feeling down. What we also know is when people get up and actually move and adopt, more positive postures and move in a dynamic way, it actually changes the way that they feel. And it only takes a couple of minutes to do that, by the way. So yeah, one of the things that's very important to me is to encourage people just to move more in a dynamic way because it makes them feel better. Look, one of the best ways to start being physically active is to walk. We have legs for a reason, and it's a natural movement that comes very easily to us. It's a safe activity, it's low impact. So yeah, walking has tremendous benefits to it. What I will say though, is there is very strong science now indicating that doing activities that engage our muscles as well. Now this doesn't mean going to a gym, by the way. This just means things that might be out in the garden. It can be a gym for those people that enjoy that, but things that actually engage our muscles in ways that sort of extend us a little bit more than we're accustomed to throughout, our normal daily living. We know that there's huge benefits to that. We actually call these resistance exercises, and the science actually indicates that it's fantastic for, making not only us more functional, but improves our bone strength. It actually improves our mood in very powerful ways. So yes, walking, just moving naturally in that way is fantastic, but also if we can add those more muscular elements to what we do as well, we're even better off. To create a total package of a movement package for well-being, it needs to include those two elements. So there's what we call the cardiovascular, the walking, these aerobic type activities. These are the activities that help our heart and our lungs and keep us fit in that way, as well as the muscular activities also.
A few months ago, I interviewed Professor Robin Daly, who's the Chair of Exercise and Ageing at Deakin University in Melbourne. And as we were talking, he kept saying that this kind of exercise should be prescribed for this and this kind of exercise for that. And after a while, I was puzzled by the use of the word prescribing. So I asked him the question, so it seems like you're saying exercise is like medicine that you prescribe. He said, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And he suggests that soon, and in some places it's already happening, a doctor or an exercise physiologist will actually prescribe exercise with your doctor's visit. And it got me thinking that perhaps if we thought of exercise as medicine, we'd probably take our medicine every day.
I think, once again, what we know from the studies on the longest lived people on the planet, so we're talking about the Okinawans in Japan and Sardinia in Italy and the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda. We actually know that movement is just a natural part of what they do, and often there's a great emphasis on things like gardening, where they're growing their own food, and we know that they're having to engage their muscles in ways that go beyond what most of us do, sitting there behind a desk all day, for example, or watching the television. And so, look, people often think, oh, do I need to go to the gym to do muscular type activities? And my response is no. If you can incorporate things that you feel your muscles working throughout your daily activities, fantastic. If you can't think of those kind of things, like the gardening, raking or digging or whatever it might be, then maybe doing other more traditional forms of what we call resistance or weight-bearing exercises can be great. But you don't need weights to do that. And this is the thing that the message I often communicate. You can be your own gym. Just using tins of food, just basic squatting activities, pushing up against a rail on your back veranda. These kind of activities we know are just as beneficial as going to a gym.
The research shows that health is multifaceted. Yes, it's about our exercise, but it's more than that. It's about what we eat. It's about our attitude. A positive attitude is best. It's about our social connections, and there's some amazing research coming out about how important social connections are, and it's all about purpose in life. We're a total package. You can see this in tennis player Ashley Wilson. I mean, he's engaged in life, he's healthy. He really does have this whole of life approach to his retirement.
Health should be seen as the number one priority. Without health, you don't enjoy yourself. And the other issue here is that you're not be able to do the things that you would want to do, even you think that retirement is the time to be enjoying these things. Health is about physical, psychological, spiritual, and mental health. So having a balance of that is really very important. And in retirement, it is very important to keep your fitness and your wellness and to have it in that plan.
One of the things I often say to people is the best way to get on a roll, a motivational roll, is to start rolling. And the reason we know that to be the case is that when people just take that first step, that's the hardest thing to do. And look, how you get yourself to take that first step, well, there are different tricks for different people, but I often say to people, for example, we know that when people move, when people go, say, walking for 30 minutes each day, there are huge benefits associated with that. In fact, that's the physical activity guidelines that most governments recommend for people. When I'm telling people this and I share this information, I see their eyes roll into the back of their head. And it's like, 30 minutes a day. And I just say, oh, look, forget about that. I said, how about, would you be able to just go walking for 5 minutes? 5 minutes, that's all you need to do. And most people go, 5 minutes, I think I can manage 5 minutes. And I said, fantastic. Then if you feel like it, if you're sufficiently motivated after those 5 minutes, then do another 25. And see, what we see is that as soon as people start to move, they take those first steps, then all of a sudden motivation seems to be more easy to come by. So, look, my conclusion is that taking the first step is often the hardest. So do whatever you can do. Trick your brain or your body in any way you need to, just to take those first few steps. And it's amazing how motivation starts to flow more easily from then.
There are ways all of us can be healthier as we head for retirement, so we're healthier in retirement.
I liked what Professor Chan said. Health should be seen as our #1 priority. Too often when we think of retirement, we think of making sure we have the finances. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, agreed. It is a whole-of-life thing. Our health is so important. Without it, our retirement will be diminished and may become a difficult struggle.
We hope you have learned some things that will help you on the road to a healthier life now and a healthier retirement when you get there.
And we hope you can join us for the next episode when we learn more about health, maintaining our brain health.
Healthy life, I think, is both something that adds life to your years and years to your life.